The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called at humanity's insistence, but the chamber felt more like a theater than a court of justice. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood at the speaker's podium, her hands gripping the edges so tightly her knuckles had gone white. Around her, representatives from 47 different species occupied their seats in rising circular tiers, most of them looking bored or irritated at the interruption to their schedules. Elena's voice was steady, but those who knew her could hear the tremor of controlled rage underneath. She had just received word 3 hours ago. New Terra, the colony world where her daughter Sophia lived with her family, had gone silent. The last transmission had been a desperate distress call, cut short by static and screams. The Crithian Empire has attacked 3 independent worlds in the past month, Elena said, her words echoing through the vast chamber. Yesterday they destroyed New Terra, a human colony of 4 million souls. Our monitoring stations detected 15 Crithian warships in orbit. They bombarded the planet for 6 hours. There were no military installations there, no strategic resources, just farms, schools, homes, and families. She paused, letting the weight of those words settle. On the screens behind her, images appeared. Smoking craters where cities once stood. Debris fields in orbit that had been passenger ships trying to evacuate. A child's toy floating in the wreckage, still transmitting its location beacon. Counselor Thexvar of the Zephyrian Communion made a dismissive gesture with his primary manipulators. Tragic, certainly, but this is a matter for diplomatic channels. The Crithians are a sovereign empire. We cannot simply— They murdered 4 million people. Elena's voice cracked like a whip across the chamber. They've been expanding into neutral space for 5 years. We warned you. We brought evidence. We showed you their fleet movements, their communications, their plans. And every single time this council chose to do nothing. Grand Arbiter Velshon, a towering figure from the ancient Morpheus collective, leaned forward in his seat. His voice was deep and resonant with the tone of someone accustomed to being obeyed. Ambassador Vasquez, we understand your species is emotional about these matters, but the Council operates on principles of measured response. We will dispatch a diplomatic envoy to the Crithian Emperor. Economic sanctions will be considered. These things take time. Time. Elena repeated the word as if tasting poison. My daughter had a name. Sophia. She was 28 years old. She taught children on New Terra. She sent me a message every week telling me about her students, about the garden she was planting, about the life she was building. She had time too until you took it from her with your inaction. The chamber fell silent. Several counselors shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Humanity has served the Galactic Council for 200 years, Elena continued, her voice dropping to something colder and more dangerous. We joined this body believing in its principles: peace, justice, protection for those who cannot protect themselves. We sent our ships to every conflict zone you designated. We bled in your wars. We died enforcing your treaties. Do you know how many humans have given their lives in council operations? She didn't wait for an answer. 473,812. I know because I attended the memorial service for every single one in my 20 years as ambassador. I learned their names. I met their families. I told them their sacrifice meant something. Elena's eyes swept across the chamber, meeting the gazes of counselors who quickly looked away. But it didn't mean anything, did it? We were useful. Good soldiers. Convenient peacekeepers. We maintained your trade routes, patrolled your borders, and asked for so little in return. Just a voice. Just the belief that when we needed you, when our people were slaughtered, you would stand with us the way we stood with you. Counselor Merricks of the Quantari Federation spoke up, her tone placating. Ambassador, please understand our position. The Crithian Empire commands significant military power. A direct confrontation could destabilize the entire— Stop! Elena held up her hand. Just stop. I understand your position perfectly. You're afraid. You've grown comfortable. Your species have enjoyed peace for so long that you've forgotten what it costs. You've forgotten that peace isn't the absence of conflict. It's the willingness to stand against those who would break it. She took a data chip from her pocket and placed it on the podium. This contains the formal withdrawal of humanity from all Galactic Council operations, effective immediately. We are recalling every human ship, every human peacekeeper, every human advisor from every Council mission and territory. We are closing our trade routes to Council members. We are revoking all technology licenses and defense agreements. We are terminating every treaty that binds us to this body. The chamber erupted. Counselors rose from their seats shouting questions and objections. Grand Arbiter Velshan's voice boomed over the chaos. Ambassador Vasquez, you cannot be serious. The economic disruption alone would what? Elena's voice cut through the noise like a blade. Inconvenience you? Cost you money? Destabilize your markets? Good. Maybe then you'll understand a fraction of what loss feels like. Maybe then you'll learn that your comfort was built on our sacrifice, and we're done providing it for free. She gathered her materials and turned to leave. Counselor Thexvar called out, You need us, Ambassador. Humanity cannot stand alone in this galaxy. Elena stopped at the chamber's exit and looked back over her shoulder. We came to you in peace. We fought your wars. We bled for your principles. But you've taught us that in this galaxy, justice is a convenience, not a conviction. You've taught us that we can only rely on ourselves. Thank you for the lesson. It will serve us well in the days ahead. She left the chamber in silence. Behind her, the counselors began arguing among themselves, some insisting this was just human emotion that would pass, others recognizing the disaster unfolding before them. None of them truly understood what they had lost. Within 48 hours, the galaxy began to feel humanity's absence. The Harridan trade route, which had been secure for 150 years under human patrol, saw its first pirate attack in decades. 3 border disputes that human mediators had been managing erupted into armed skirmishes. A dozen mining operations dependent on human engineering support went dark. The Council sent 3 separate delegations to Earth, each with increasingly generous offers. Earth's response was the same each time, a polite message thanking them for their interest and informing them that humanity was no longer available for Council business. On Earth, Elena Vasquez stood in her daughter's empty apartment, forwarded to her along with Sophia's few possessions that had been salvaged from New Terra. She held a photograph of Sophia with her students, all of them smiling in front of a newly planted tree. On the back, Sophia had written, For Mom. This is why we're out here, building something beautiful. Elena placed the photograph carefully in her bag. She had been appointed to lead the new Human Defense Initiative, a position she had accepted with one condition. Never again would humanity sacrifice its people for beings who valued them so little. The galaxy had wanted humanity's service without humanity's voice. They had wanted protection without partnership, sacrifice without sovereignty. Now they would learn what humanity's absence cost. And if the lesson came with a price, Elena thought as she sealed her daughter's apartment for the last time, then the galaxy would simply have to pay it. 6 months had passed since humanity withdrew from the Galactic Council, and the galaxy was burning. Admiral James Chen stood on the observation deck of the orbital station above Earth, watching the news feeds from across known space. Each screen showed a different crisis, a different war, a different failure of the system that had claimed to keep the peace. 17 active conflicts, his aide reported, highlighting sectors on the massive star map. The Harridan corridor has completely collapsed. The border between the Quantari Federation and the Stellax Imperium is now a war zone, and the Crethean Empire has expanded to control 42 additional systems. Chen nodded slowly. He was a tall man with gray hair and calculating eyes, someone who had spent 40 years in military service before being appointed to lead the Human Defense Initiative. He felt no pleasure in watching the galaxy tear itself apart, but he also felt no guilt. Humanity had warned them. They had chosen not to listen. What about the Council's response? Chen asked. His aide pulled up another display. They've attempted to deploy peacekeeping forces to 6 conflict zones. All 6 missions failed within weeks. Their ships are breaking down, Admiral. Without human maintenance crews and human engineers, they can't keep their fleets operational. It was true. For 2 centuries, humans had quietly embedded themselves in the infrastructure of galactic civilization. Human technicians maintained the jump gate network. Human programmers had written the translation software that allowed different species to communicate. Human engineers had designed the shield generators protecting Council worlds. The galaxy had become dependent on human expertise without even realizing it. Now all of that was gone. Show me the breakdown, Chen said. The display shifted to show a detailed analysis. 34% of Council military technology was either human-designed or required human maintenance. Communication networks across 12 sectors were failing because the protocols had been maintained by human specialists. Trade routes were collapsing because the automated defense platforms humans had installed needed regular updates that weren't coming. They're starting to understand, Chen's aide said. We've received 47 official requests for human engineers to return to their posts. They're offering triple pay citizenship bonuses, whatever they think will work. And our response? Every human citizen has declined. Most of them cited the New Terra massacre. They don't want to work for people who let their families die. Chen walked to the main viewport and stared out at Earth below. Blue oceans, white clouds, green continents. Home. The planet that had sent its children to the stars believing they could make the galaxy better. That idealism had cost 4 million lives on New Terra alone, not counting the hundreds of thousands who had died in council service over 2 centuries. Admiral, we have incoming vessels, the aide announced. 3 council ships requesting permission to dock. They're carrying diplomatic envoys, again? Chen sighed. This was the 5th delegation in as many months. Who is it this time? Grand Arbiter Velshan himself, along with representatives from the Zephyrian Communion and the Morpheus Collective. Chen turned from the viewport. Very well. Let them dock. But they meet with us on our terms in our conference room and they'll hear what we have to say. 2 hours later, the delegation sat in a sparse conference room in the human station. Grand Arbiter Velshan looked uncomfortable in the simple metal chair, his massive frame more accustomed to the luxurious seats of the council chamber. The other representatives seemed equally ill at ease. Admiral Chen, Velshan began, his deep voice carrying its usual authority. We come to you with an urgent request. The galaxy is in crisis. We need humanity to return to council operations immediately. Chen remained standing at the head of the table. No. The simple words seemed to take the delegation by surprise. Velshan recovered first. Admiral, please be reasonable. We are prepared to offer humanity a permanent seat on the Security Council. Increased voting rights, economic concessions. You're not listening, Chen interrupted. I didn't say we need to negotiate. I didn't say we need better terms. I said no. Humanity will not return to council operations under any circumstances. Councillor Merrick's leaned forward, her expression earnest. Admiral, without human support, the entire galactic order is collapsing. Millions are dying in conflicts we cannot contain. You must see that. We see perfectly well, Chen said coldly. He activated a holographic display in the center of the table. Numbers and charts appeared, floating in the air between them. This is a complete accounting of humanity's contribution to the Galactic Council over the past 200 years. He gestured, and the first set of numbers expanded. 473,812 human lives lost in council operations. Each one a volunteer who believed they were serving a greater good. Another gesture. 842 billion credits in economic support, technology transfers, and infrastructure development provided to council members at cost or for free. Another gesture. 6 trillion hours of labor provided by human engineers, technicians, mediators, and specialists maintaining systems you didn't even know you depended on. Chen looked at each member of the delegation in turn. And when we asked for your help, when our colony was being bombarded by the Crithians, what did you offer us? Diplomatic channels. Economic sanctions that you never even implemented. Measured responses that meant nothing. Admiral, that decision was a mistake, Velshan admitted, his voice quieter now. We recognize that. We are here to make amends. You're here because your civilization is collapsing and you need us to save you, Chen corrected. Again. Just like we've saved you from yourselves for 2 centuries. But this time, we're declining the honor. He pressed a button on the table and the holographic display changed to show a new document. This is humanity's new doctrine of armed neutrality. We will defend our territory and our interests. We will trade with any species that approaches us fairly. But we will not fight your wars. We will not maintain your infrastructure. We will not sacrifice our people for your convenience. Councillor Thexavar, who had remained silent until now, finally spoke. This is madness, Admiral. The Crithian Empire grows stronger every day. Eventually, they will come for Earth. You will need allies. Then we will deal with them ourselves, Chen said calmly. You see, the thing you never understood about humanity is that we kept the peace because we chose to, not because we had to. We held back. We played by your rules. We used the minimum force necessary because we believed in the principles you claimed to uphold. He leaned forward, his hands flat on the table. But you taught us that those principles were lies. You taught us that in this galaxy, power is all that matters. So we're going to show you what happens when humans stop holding back. We're going to show you what we really are. The delegation left an hour later, their mission a complete failure. As their ships departed, Chen watched them go and felt a grim satisfaction. The galaxy had wanted humanity's service without humanity's voice. They had wanted protection without partnership. Now they would learn what humanity's absence cost. Within a week, Earth opened trading negotiations with 17 species, including several that had been victims of Crithian aggression. The terms were simple: fair trade, mutual respect, and access to human military technology for those willing to pay. The weapons humanity offered made Council technology look like children's toys. Railguns that could crack a planet's crust, shield generators that could withstand a star's corona, warships that moved like fighters but hit like dreadnoughts. The galaxy was about to learn a lesson it should have learned long ago. Conflict has a price, and humanity had been paying it for far too long. Now it was someone else's turn. 1 year after humanity withdrew from the Galactic Council, the Crithian Empire made its fatal mistake. Emperor Kraxthor sat on his crystalline throne, surrounded by his military advisors, and made the declaration that would doom his empire. "Humanity stands alone," he announced, his mandibles clicking with satisfaction. "They have no allies, no council protection. They are merchants and peacekeepers, not warriors. We will demand their submission, and if they refuse, we will crush them as we crushed New Terra." His advisors cheered. The Crithian Empire had grown fat on conquest, expanding into the power vacuum humanity's withdrawal had created. 42 new systems had fallen under their control. Their fleet had grown to 10,000 warships. They had become the dominant military power in the galaxy, and Emperor Kraxthor believed nothing could stop them. He was about to learn how wrong he was. The Crithian fleet entered the Sol system 3 weeks later, emerging from jump space in a massive formation that blocked out the stars. 10,000 warships, each bristling with weapons arranged in perfect battle formations. They had come to make humanity kneel. Admiral James Chen watched them arrive from the command center of the orbital defense platform above Mars. Around him, his officers monitored displays showing every ship in the Crithian fleet. The numbers were impressive. 10,000 ships, enough firepower to sterilize 100 worlds. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the Crithian flagship," the communications officer reported. "Put it through," Chen said calmly. Emperor Kraxthor's image appeared on the main screen. He was massive, even for a Crithian, with thick armor plating and battle scars across his carapace. "Humans," he said, his voice full of contempt. "You see the might arrayed against you. You have 1 hour to surrender. Open your defense networks to our control. Transmit your complete technological databases and prepare to accept Crithian governors. Refuse, and we will do to Earth what we did to New Terra." Chen studied the Emperor for a moment, then smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "Emperor Kraxthor, you've made several assumptions. First, that we're afraid. Second, that we're unprepared. Third, that you understand what humanity is capable of. All 3 assumptions are incorrect." The Emperor's mandibles clicked in irritation. "You speak bravely for someone about to die, human. You have 1 hour." The transmission ended. Chen turned to his officers. "Send the signal. Spring the trap." Across the Sol system, humanity revealed its true face. Every human colony, every trading post, every mining station, every supposedly civilian installation suddenly powered up defensive systems the galaxy had never seen. The orbital platforms around Earth, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn activated weapon batteries that had been hidden in plain sight for decades. The asteroid belt came alive with defense drones that had been waiting in cold storage, and the human fleet emerged from behind the moon. Captain Sarah Okonkwo stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Persistent Mercy and felt the ship come alive beneath her feet. She was a veteran of 20 years in the human navy, with dark skin, sharp eyes, and a reputation for aggressive tactics. Around her, the crew moved with practiced efficiency, preparing for the battle they had trained for their entire lives. "All systems green," her tactical officer reported. "Weapons charged. Shields at maximum. Fleet reports ready." Sarah looked at the tactical display. The human fleet numbered only 200 ships, vastly outnumbered by the Crithian force. But numbers weren't everything. The Crithians had come expecting merchants and peacekeepers. They were about to meet warriors. "Open a channel to all human forces," Sarah ordered. "All units, this is Persistent Mercy. We have been holding back for 200 years. We kept the peace. We played by the rules. We used minimum force. Today we show them what happens when humans stop holding back. Make them pay for every soul they took from us. Make them pay for New Terra. The response was immediate. 200 ships acknowledged, their crews ready. The orbital platforms locked onto targets. The defense drones armed their weapons. And Earth's planetary shield, a marvel of engineering that had been secretly constructed over 50 years, activated for the first time. The Battle of Sol began when the Crithians opened fire. 10,000 ships launched their weapons simultaneously, a wave of destruction meant to overwhelm any defense. Missiles, energy beams, plasma torpedoes, all designed to shatter planets. They never reached their targets. The human point defense network was beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. Thousands of automated turrets tracked incoming fire with perfect accuracy. Interceptor drones moved at speeds that defied physics, destroying missiles before they could arm. Energy shields that could withstand a star's heat absorbed what got through, and then humanity fired back. The persistent Mercy led the counterattack. Sarah watched as her gunners targeted the Crithian flagship and fired the ship's main weapon, a railgun that accelerated a solid tungsten slug to a fraction of light speed. The projectile crossed the distance in seconds and struck the flagship's shields. The shields collapsed. The slug continued through the ship's armor, through its interior and out the other side, leaving a perfectly circular hole 100 meters wide. The flagship broke in half and exploded. Target destroyed, the tactical officer reported, her voice steady. Acquiring new target. Across the battlefield, human ships demonstrated technology the Crithians had never encountered. Weapons that punched through armor like paper, shields that regenerated faster than they could be depleted, engines that allowed ships to change direction so quickly they seemed to teleport, electronic warfare systems that turned Crithian targeting computers against their own ships. The battle lasted 72 hours. It was the most brutal, one-sided slaughter in galactic history. The Crithians fought desperately, trying every tactic they knew. They attempted massed charges, flanking maneuvers, focused fire on single targets. Nothing worked. Human ships moved through their formations like sharks through a school of fish. The orbital platforms picked off ships with mechanical precision. The defense drones hunted in packs, overwhelming shields through coordinated strikes. Sarah's ship alone destroyed 200 Crithian vessels. Each time her crew fired, another enemy died. Each time they maneuvered, another attack failed. The persistent Mercy earned its name that day, showing mercy to no one who had come to destroy humanity's home. On the third day, the Crithian fleet broke. Of the 10,000 ships that had entered the Sol system, fewer than 300 remained operational. They attempted to retreat, jumping back to Crithian space in disarray. The human fleet let them go. Sarah watched them flee and felt no satisfaction, only grim determination. Send a message to the retreating ships, she ordered. Make sure they understand. The transmission went out on all frequencies, broadcast across the galaxy for anyone to hear. Admiral Chen's voice carried the message that humanity wanted the universe to hear. We kept the peace because we chose to, not because we had to. For 2 centuries we held back our full capabilities. We used minimum force. We followed the rules. We let you believe we were merchants and peacekeepers because we hoped you would learn to value peace on your own. But you didn't learn. You mistook our restraint for weakness. You mistook our compassion for cowardice. You destroyed New Terra and thought we would do nothing. You came to Earth thinking you could make us kneel. Now you know the truth. We knew the cost of war. We paid it in blood and sacrifice for 200 years. Now you do too. Never forget this lesson. Never forget what happens when humans stop holding back. The transmission ended. Across the galaxy, species that had watched the battle in real time sat in stunned silence. The Crithians, who had seemed unstoppable, had been destroyed in 3 days. Humanity, who they had dismissed as useful servants, had revealed themselves as the most dangerous military power in known space. Within a week, the Crithian Empire sued for peace. Emperor Kraxthor, his fleet destroyed and his military broken, sent an unconditional surrender. The terms were simple: complete withdrawal from all conquered territories, reparations to the victims of their aggression, and perpetual non-aggression toward human space. Sarah Okonkwo stood on the bridge of persistent mercy and looked out at Earth, whole and untouched despite the Crithian threat. Her crew had performed perfectly. Her ship had done its duty. But she felt no joy in victory, only the weight of all those Crithian lives lost. "Captain," her first officer said quietly, "was it worth it? All those deaths?" Sarah thought about New Terra, about 4 million people who had died because the galaxy had chosen cowardice over courage. "They made their choice when they came here to kill us," she said. "We just made sure they paid the price for that choice. Maybe now the galaxy will think twice before starting wars they can't finish." The galaxy had learned its lesson. Conflict has a price, and humanity was done paying it for them. 2 years after humanity withdrew from the Galactic Council, the galaxy looked very different. The old council still existed, but only in name. Its grand chambers sat mostly empty, its resolutions ignored, its authority reduced to ceremonial irrelevance. The real power now lay elsewhere. Elena Vasquez, now Chancellor of Earth, stood before the assembled representatives of the Terran Compact in Geneva. 53 species had joined this new alliance, each one seeking the partnership and protection that the old council had failed to provide. The chamber was smaller than the council's grand hall, but the atmosphere was completely different. Here every species had an equal voice. Here decisions were made by consensus, not by the whims of ancient powers. "The compact has grown beyond anything we imagined," Elena said, addressing the assembly. "When we formed this alliance 2 years ago, we hoped for 10 members. We now have 53, with 20 more applications under review. This is not an empire. This is not a hegemony. This is a community of equals, bound by mutual respect and shared principles." She gestured to the star map behind her, showing the territory now under compact protection. "Our combined territory encompasses 412 systems. Our combined fleet numbers 15,000 ships. Our combined economy rivals what the old council commanded at its height. But more important than any of these numbers is what we represent, the idea that strength should protect the weak, not exploit them." Ambassador Kelrix of the Therian people stood to speak. His species had been one of the first to join the compact, after the Crethians had devastated 3 of their colonies. "Chancellor Vasquez speaks truth. The compact has given us what the council never did, a voice, protection, and dignity. We are proud to stand with humanity and all our fellow members." Similar statements came from representatives across the chamber. The compact had proven itself in its first 2 years. When pirates attacked a member's trade route, compact ships responded within hours. When a member needed help with infrastructure, compact engineers arrived to assist. When disputes arose between members, compact mediators helped find solutions that worked for everyone. The old council members watched this transformation with growing alarm and resentment. They had been the dominant powers in the galaxy for thousands of years. Now they found themselves on the outside, watching former client species prosper under human protection, while their own economies struggled. Elena knew the old council members were plotting something. Intelligence reports had shown increasing communication between the Vraxian hegemony, the Zypherian communion, and the Morpheus collective. 3 of the most powerful species in the old council, each one bitter about their loss of status. She didn't have to wait long to see what they planned. 3 months after her speech in Geneva, the Vraxian hegemony announced the formation of the Coalition for Galactic Stability. 12 former council members joined immediately, combining their military and economic might to challenge the Terran Compact's growing influence. "We cannot allow this upstart alliance to dictate terms to the galaxy," Hegemon Vrax declared in a broadcast. "The council maintained peace for thousands of years. Humanity has been a spacefaring species for barely 300. They are children playing with weapons they don't understand. The Coalition will restore proper order." The Coalition's first action was to blockade 5 systems that had applied to join the Terran Compact. Coalition warships prevented trade, cut off communications, and made it clear that any species joining the Compact would face economic warfare. Admiral Chen brought the situation to Elena in her office overlooking Lake Geneva. "The Coalition is testing us," he said, showing her the deployment patterns. "They've positioned 300 ships in key locations. They're expecting us to respond militarily. They want to provoke a war they think they can win through superior numbers." Elena studied the reports carefully. "They're making the same mistake the Crithians made. They think we'll respond the way they would respond." "What do our intelligence analysts say about the Coalition's economy?" Chen smiled, understanding her thinking immediately. "Vulnerable. very vulnerable. The coalition members are heavily dependent on trade with neutral species. Their military spending has increased 30% in the past year, straining their economies. And they're still dealing with the infrastructure problems that started when our people withdrew. Then we don't send ships, Elena decided. We send economists. Over the next month, the Terran Compact implemented a strategy of economic pressure that the coalition had never anticipated. Every neutral species that traded with coalition members received an offer: continue trading with the coalition or gain preferential access to compact markets and technology. Most chose the compact human corporations, which had been providing cheap technological components to coalition members, suddenly raised their prices to market rates or stopped selling altogether. The technology licenses that had been maintained at discounted rates for council members expired, and humanity declined to renew them at any price. Most devastating of all, the compact offered refugee status to any skilled worker from coalition species who wanted to leave. Thousands of engineers, scientists, and technicians took the offer, fleeing economies in decline for the prosperity of the compact. The coalition attempted to respond with force, but force meant nothing against economic reality. Within 3 months, the Vraxian hegemony was facing riots as food prices doubled and unemployment soared. The Zephyrian Communion watched 3 of its major corporations collapse when they lost access to human technology. The Morpheus Collective saw its currency lose 40% of its value in 6 weeks. The coalition fleet remained at its blockade positions, but the crews were not being paid. The ships were not being maintained. The food supplies were running short, and back home, their governments were collapsing. 6 months after the coalition formed, Hegemon Vrax sent a private communication to Earth requesting a meeting. Elena agreed to see him, but only on her terms in Geneva, with full media coverage. The once proud Hegemon looked diminished as he stood before her in a conference room that was intentionally modest. His scales had lost their luster, and his eyes carried the weight of defeat. "Chancellor Vasquez," he began, his voice lacking its former arrogance. "The coalition wishes to discuss terms for ending the current situation." "You mean you wish to surrender?" Elena said bluntly. "Let's be honest about what this meeting is." Vrax flinched but nodded. "Our economies cannot sustain the current policies. We were wrong to challenge the compact. We ask for your mercy." Elena leaned back in her chair, studying the hegemon who had once declared humans to be children playing with weapons. "You made the same mistake the old council made. You looked at us and saw merchants and peacekeepers. You thought economic warfare was something you could win because you've never truly understood what drives human civilization." She stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. "We're traders, yes. We're engineers. We're builders. But we're also survivors. For thousands of years on Earth, humans competed in marketplaces as fiercely as we competed on battlefields. We learned that economic power can be just as devastating as military power. Sometimes more so." Turning back to face Vrax, she continued, "The coalition is dissolved, effective immediately. All blockades are lifted. All member species will sign non-aggression pacts with the compact, and you will issue a formal apology to every species you attempted to intimidate." "And if we refuse?" Vrax asked weakly. "Then we continue the current policies until your governments collapse completely," Elena said without emotion. "Your people are suffering because you chose pride over pragmatism. How much longer will you make them pay for your arrogance?" Vrax signed the agreement that afternoon. Within a week, the other coalition members followed. The blockades lifted, the fleets withdrew, and the galaxy settled into a new reality. The Terran Compact was now the dominant power in known space, and everyone knew it. A month later, Elena gave a speech that was broadcast across the galaxy. She stood at a memorial on Earth, surrounded by the names of every human who had died in council service, including her daughter Sophia. "We did not seek dominance," she said, her voice carrying across the memorial and across the stars. "We sought dignity. We did not want submission. We wanted respect. For 200 years, we gave our blood and treasure to maintain a peace that others took for granted. When we asked for help, we were ignored. When we demanded justice, we were dismissed. So we withdrew, and the galaxy learned what our service had been worth." She paused, looking at Sophia's name among the thousands. "The Terran Compact is not a replacement for the Council. It's a better version of what the Council should have been, a place where every species has a voice. where strength protects the weak instead of exploiting them, where sacrifice is honored, not expected. This is the legacy of everyone whose name is on this wall. They believed the galaxy could be better. Now we're making it better not for the powerful but for everyone. The broadcast ended. Across the galaxy, species watched and understood. Humanity had not conquered them through force. Humanity had shown them a better way, and they had chosen to follow it. The old council powers could resent it all they wanted. 5 years after humanity withdrew from the Galactic Council, a new threat emerged from the darkness between the stars. It began with silence. 3 star systems on the galactic rim stopped transmitting. Search and rescue teams found nothing but debris and empty planets, their surfaces stripped clean of all organic matter and refined metals. Then 3 more systems went dark. Then 6, then 12. The pattern was clear to anyone with eyes to see. Something was moving through the galaxy, consuming everything in its path. The attacks followed a mathematical precision that suggested intelligence, but also a complete disregard for communication or negotiation. Whatever was coming did not want to talk. It wanted to harvest. Admiral Chen stood in the tactical center beneath Geneva, studying the latest reports. The facility had been built in secret over the past 5 years, a command center designed to coordinate the defense of not just Earth, but the entire Terran compact. Now it was about to face its ultimate test. "We're calling them harvesters," his chief intelligence officer reported, pulling up images of the massive machines that had been captured by long-range probes. Self-replicating autonomous weapon systems, probably millions of years old. They consume entire planets to build more of themselves. Current count is over 50,000 individual units, and that number is growing exponentially. Chen studied the images. The harvesters were vast constructs, some larger than moons, bristling with weapons and processing facilities. They moved through space with terrible purpose, breaking down planets into their component elements and using those elements to create more of themselves. "Where did they come from?" Chen asked. "Deep space beyond the galactic rim. We detected strange signals from that direction 300 years ago, but we didn't have the technology to investigate. Looks like the signals were warning beacons left by whatever civilization first encountered these things." Chen pulled up the tactical projections. At their current rate of expansion, the harvesters would reach compact space within 6 months and Earth within a year. The old council territories would be hit even sooner. "Get me a channel to Chancellor Vasquez," Chen ordered, in her office above the lake. Elena received the call and listened to Chen's briefing with growing horror. She had spent 5 years building a better galaxy, creating a system where species worked together instead of exploiting each other. Now something was coming that threatened to end all of it. "Can we stop them?" she asked. "Unknown," Chen admitted. "We've never seen technology like this. Our weapons might work, but we're talking about 50,000 targets that can rebuild themselves faster than we can destroy them. We need every ship, every weapon, every resource we can gather, and even then I don't know if it will be enough." Elena made her decision immediately. Send a message to every species in the galaxy. All of them, compact and council alike. Tell them what's coming and offer them a choice. Stand with us or face this threat alone. The response to humanity's message was swift but divided. Every compact member immediately pledged their full support. But the old council members hesitated, still bitter about their loss of status. Some offered limited assistance. Others demanded guarantees and concessions before they would commit their forces. A few, in their arrogance, suggested this was humanity's problem to solve. Then the harvesters reached the Vraxian homeworld. The attack was broadcast across the galaxy in real time. Millions watched as 50 harvester units emerged from jump space and began their terrible work. The Vraxian defense fleet, still rebuilding after the economic collapse, fought bravely but uselessly. Their weapons barely scratched the harvesters' armor. Their shields meant nothing against weapons that could crack a planet's crust. In 72 hours, the Vraxian homeworld was reduced to an empty sphere of processed rock, and 20 billion people were gone. The next transmission the galaxy received came from the remnants of the old council. Grand Arbiter Velshan appeared on screen, and for the first time since humanity had known him, he looked truly afraid. "Humanity," he said, his voice stripped of its former authority. "You were right. We were wrong. We let New Terra burn because we were cowards. We dismissed your warnings because we were arrogant. We challenged your compact because we were proud. And now we are paying the price for all of it. Please help us. We're begging you." Elena watched the transmission in her office, accompanied by Admiral Chen and her senior advisors. The easy answer would be to refuse, to let the council members face the consequences of their choices the way humanity had faced the consequences alone on New Terra. Justice would demand it. But Elena thought of her daughter Sophia, who had died believing the galaxy could be better. She thought of the 4 million souls on New Terra who had never asked for war. She thought of the 20 billion Vraxians who had been consumed by the harvesters, most of them civilians who had nothing to do with their government's arrogance. "Send a response," she said quietly. "Tell them we're coming." Her chief advisor looked at her in surprise. "Chancellor, after everything they've done to us, you're going to save them?" Elena met his eyes steadily. "We're not saving their governments. We're saving the innocent beings who never asked to be part of this. That's the difference between us and them. That's the difference we've been trying to teach the galaxy for 5 years. We don't fight for politics. We fight for people." She turned to Chen. "Admiral, mobilize everything. Every ship, every weapon, every soldier. And send a message to every species that wants to survive. We fight together or we die alone. But if they choose to fight with us, they fight under human command. No debates, no committees, no council votes. This is war, and wars are won by those who can make hard decisions fast." The response was overwhelming. 200 species sent their fleets to rally points designated by human command. Compact members came willingly. Council species came desperately. Even former enemies like the Crithians sent what remained of their forces. Within 3 weeks, humanity had assembled the largest military fleet in galactic history. 40,000 warships from dozens of species, all under unified human command. But Admiral Chen knew it wouldn't be enough. The harvesters now numbered over 100,000 units and were still growing. Conventional warfare would fail. They needed something else. Something the harvesters wouldn't expect. "We've been preparing for this," Chen told the assembled fleet commanders in a secure communication. 300 years ago, we detected the signals that we now know came from the harvesters. We didn't know what they were, but we knew something was out there. So we prepared. We built weapons. We developed tactics. We created contingencies, and now we're going to use all of it." He pulled up a star map showing the harvesters' projected path. "They're consuming resources to build more of themselves. That's their strength, but it's also their weakness. They need raw materials, so we're going to give them poisoned materials." The plan was audacious. Human ships would seed the harvesters' path with asteroids and planetoids that had been secretly modified over decades. These objects contained self-replicating nanomachines designed to corrupt the harvesters' manufacturing processes. When the harvesters consumed these objects, they would build defective copies of themselves. Copies that would fail in battle. Copies that would turn on their own kind. "It won't stop all of them," Chen admitted, "but it will slow them down enough for us to fight. The battle will still be the hardest any of us have ever faced. Many of us won't come home, but if we do this right, we can save the galaxy." The final battle took place in the Korvax sector, a region of dense star systems that humanity had chosen as the killing ground. The harvesters came in a wave of metal and destruction, their numbers seeming infinite. The combined fleet met them head-on. Captain Sarah Okonkwo commanded a battle group of 500 ships, a mix of human and alien vessels working together with precision, born from months of intensive training. The Persistent Mercy had been upgraded with the newest weapons humanity could build, and Sarah intended to use every single one. "All ships, this is Persistent Mercy," she transmitted. "We've spent the last 5 years showing the galaxy what humans can do. Today we show them what the galaxy can do when it works together. Make every shot count, make every sacrifice matter. For everyone we've lost and everyone we're going to save." The battle raged for 3 weeks. It was brutal, desperate, and terrible. Ships died by the hundreds. Entire battle groups were wiped out by harvester weapons. But slowly, inevitably, the human strategy worked. The poisoned materials corrupted the harvesters' reproduction. Defective units turned on functional ones. The exponential growth reversed into exponential collapse. The combined fleet pressed the advantage. Human ships demonstrated tactics they had developed over 3 centuries of preparation. Alien species showed courage and skill that humanity had always known they possessed. Together, they fought not as separate civilizations but as a unified force. Sarah's ship was one of the last standing when the battle finally ended. The Persistent Mercy had taken terrible damage, losing half its crew and most of its weapons, but it had survived. As had humanity, as had the galaxy. The final toll was devastating. 20,000 ships lost, 3 million soldiers dead, including 15,000 humans.